in my view, he's the player that probably most makes you excited about a brand of football that we maybe haven't seen in our island so often. He's the guy who maybe converts you back into being the fan that you were at 9, travelling to Bavaria to watch Everton. We know what he does, but what is it? Why isn't it Baresi for you, or Maldini for you, or why isn't it somebody who maybe shared more of the... I know you started in midfield, but just my question is, why? Why?
Well, Xavi was a player who I used to watch a lot of Spanish football when I was a younger player, and it wasn't when Barcelona were doing well. It was around the time of, Rafa's Valencia, Deportivo La Coruña. Was the manager Irueta?
Xavi Irueta, spot on.
I used to watch them teams and they were doing really well, and Valeron, Jalmina in there, Tristan, all these players, and there was obviously Baraka and El Belder and Vicente in those teams, and actually John Carew, I think, at the top end of the pitch for Valencia. But I think but Barcelona weren't doing that well. I think it was at a time where Xavi was getting a little bit of criticism from Barcelona, maybe the supporters. But so I used to watch them a lot, and I'd be like, I love this player. And I always remember him playing for, I think it was I don't know if it was England B or England under 21s, played Spain. And I remember, I think it may have been at West Brom's ground or Birmingham or something like that. And I just love the player. And I used to always speak to the Spanish lads about him. And I always find, and I found this going to England training, is everyone's a good player at international level. That's why you're there. But what defines, I feel, world-class players is players who stand out in that environment. So Stevie Gerrard would stand out at England training, Rio Ferdinand, John Terry, Paul Scholes. So those would be 4 or 5. But the Spanish lads would always come back to me and I'd be saying, what's Xavi like in training? And he was a level above World Cup winners, And the thing, I mean, you mentioned Baresi before. I'd say my 2 favourites are Baresi and Xavi. Because it's the brain, really. The thing that I love about Baresi is he's only 5'9". He's not 6'3" and dominating in the air and quicker and stronger than him. To get to the level he's had to think. And the same with Xavi, in that he's slow. He can't really... I mean, no, he's not slow. But he's not... You don't look at him and think athlete. But he's quick across the ground, the first sort of 5-10 yards. But it's the brain. I mean, it's... The thing I loved about Xavi, I would say, was nobody in the world who ever played against Xavi could stop him doing what he wanted to do. Yeah. You couldn't. So it was almost like, okay, no one could go and get the ball off him, so you couldn't stop Xavi running a game. And that was his job. So how good is that? That nobody can actually stop you doing what you want to do. It's almost okay, we have to accept that's going to happen. What can we do about another area of the pitch? So, and he'd be getting he'd be man of the match in the World Cup final. He'd be the best player in every tournament he played. He'd be man of the match in the Champions League finals. And it was almost like, I loved Iniesta, don't get me wrong, but it was almost like Xavi was in charge of the team. And this team was about, being on the ball and keeping possession, of course, and you can say Puyol's a leader. But in terms of this team, is about keep making passes until they open it. And it was like, I'm in charge of this. And I always felt Baresi, that Milan team was maybe slightly different. It wasn't as possession-based. It was maybe the best defensive unit you've ever seen. The organisation of pushing up and being compact, catching people offside. It was almost like Baresi told everyone else what they had to do. And I always felt that was with Xavi. So that's why if I'm ever asked who are my favourite 2 people in football, yes, you can say Messi's the best player I've ever seen. That's normal. That's not original. But the ones that get my juices flowing are the ones who haven't, not so much got natural ability. Those 2 players got unbelievable ability, but they haven't got the full package. But the brain is just on another level to other footballers. And that's why I'm fascinated to see if he's in coaching now. I'm sure he'll end up being the Barcelona manager. But when you speak to him, he's so, not confidence the wrong way, but he believes so much in his idea and the Barcelona idea and how it's going to work and what you have to do, that I just think it's going to be fascinating. to see how he not just does at Barcelona, because I'm sure he'll be Barcelona coach, but I'm sure that'll only last 3 or 4 years. That's just the nature of Barcelona. But what he does and where he goes and what he gets involved in, because I just think the great minds in football, you always want them involved in the game. And there's certainly two. And I mean, I should mention, I wanted to speak about Saka. It'd be great to get Baresi, but one of the highlights for me is, I'm a footballer, I've played against Xavi in big games, but there's still footballers you look up to, even though you're at the top of your game, and Xavi is one of them. I'm still in awe of him. And the other one was Baresi, obviously never played against him. But I took my son to a Milan derby. So my birthday's the 28th of January. So it's normally FA Cup weekend in England, 4th round, always that weekend. So I wasn't doing a game for Sky, so the Milan derby's on. I'll take my son to the Milan derby. Got in touch with AC Milan, absolutely looked after me fabulously well, considering what had happened in 2005. But we get sat in almost executive seats, and we're sat next to Franco Baresi. And I'm like, I can't believe, I'm saying to my son, this is Franco Baresi. He's saying, who's that? Well, I said, you see that big banner behind the goal? And I'm not talking a banner, I'm talking the whole of the stand was covered with this thing for Franco Baresi, no other player. And I'm like, that's him. The fella you're sitting next to, that's him there. So that's how good he was. So that's why I love those type of players, really. The ones who have to, or need the brain to get them to the absolute elite.